Hello, beloveds, and welcome back for another episode of Leadership that Liberates. And I have to say that I'm surprised we're here. I knew that eventually I would have to talk about my own shadow work that has come up as a result of this podcast. I just didn't think that it would be happening so soon. And there are many, many things coming up for me around the podcast and a lot of stuff to process and many layers that go deep into many different experiences and parts of self and seasons of life and core thematic struggles that I've had always. There is so much to unpack and so much of it that is not yet ready. Not yet ready to be shared out there for the world. There's still a lot of it that I am, of course, processing for myself. But there are some things that I do want to talk about, and it feels important for me to name those things and to be honest about what's been coming up for me in some of these regards, because I don't think that I can keep showing up to the podcast if I don't do that. Like, I literally think I will shut down and run away. And so I am taking this episode to share a little bit about what this has been like for me so far, some of the things that are coming up, how I'm facing them or moving through them, or maybe still not really sure how I'm going to do either of those things. But I know that if I don't name this and just be honest about this right now, I can't keep podcasting. Um, yeah, I just want to share with you some of these pieces, really some of the fears and insecurities, and maybe some of the stories that are coming up for me around this. On the one hand, that feels really vulnerable because I think I'm just going to maybe after this episode come across as the most insecure person on the planet. And I have a sense that so much of what I'm facing and struggling with is going to resonate with so many of you. And if it makes you feel less alone or more validated in the experience that you're having for yourself in your own life, then there is value in sharing this, even though a part of me is like, you are exposing you're crazy. But like, we all have a little bit of that, so that's okay. There are a lot of things. And like I said, I'm not going to go into so much of it, but there's definitely stuff coming up around showing different parts of me, about having different aspects of who I am come forward to be seen, which is another piece of it all, is the visibility and what potentially comes with that, and my own insecurities around communication, because I have a lot of them. That's my Chiron in Gemini, which is currently conjunct Mercury in Gemini. So it just makes a lot of sense that how I communicate is feeling, it's a big sensitivity for me right now, which, as someone who is putting my voice out there in this way and filming my face as I do it, there's a lot about this process that is really vulnerable. It's easier from the outside to forget about what it is really like for a person to put their heart and soul on the line in the types of things that they share and in the ways that they share. And that's why so many of us are so afraid to do so many of the things we feel drawn and led to do, because there is a lot of discomfort and insecurity and fear that's on the other side of taking that leap. I mean, it's on both sides, let's be real. It just looks and feels a little bit different, but it's always there, and I don't think it's going away. And we can build our capacity for more confidence and more courage, but it doesn't take away the fear or the insecurity. We just learn how to be better and better at being with those things, but we don't get rid of them. I think that's part of why this feels important for me, is to build my capacity to be with the discomfort that's coming up for me so that I can keep showing up to this and for this. There's been a lot of me feeling weird about different parts of me me that have come through, because there is definitely some of my own shadow side coming up in the ways that I am presenting my perspectives. I'll talk about that in a bit. There's also, on many different levels, a desire to suppress different parts of myself and different ways that I show up in the world. So I notice that when I am speaking about astrology, there is all of this stuff that I'm doing to minimize skepticism, but also to maintain my own credibility. So what's coming up for me is a lot of shame around being an astrologer. That's something I'm actually so passionate about, and I know that for many people on the surface, they don't see how that part of me fits into this work or the things that I'm talking about. Whereas from my perspective, the approach that I take to astrology and the patterns it reveals are so complementary to this work. It's incredibly valuable to use those insights along with the kinds of things I want to share and talk about. And there's so much shame because I do come from a background in which my intelligence was incredibly important. My intelligence was how I proved my worthiness, it was how I received love. So it's almost like I feel a need to defend my intelligence or to maintain my credibility. And the fear is that astrology diminishes my intelligence, my intellect, my credibility, my authority, my background in academia. There is so much judgment from the outside world that is coloring my own comfort in how I show up and what parts of me feel worthy of being present in this space and what parts of me are wrong or bad. And it's not wrong or bad to be an astrologer and to use the insights gained from astrology to complement liberation work and shadow work. And even that shadow work, I also feel like I have to dance around and justify what shadow work is and why it's valuable because, again, there's so much misperception, so much misunderstanding. I feel like I'm having to defend that part of myself. And even the fact that what I really want to do is emphasize love, and how even that has been so distorted. And what's so interesting about the fact that I have felt this discomfort with bringing these parts of myself forward, or feeling that I should be suppressing these parts of myself, is that actually the parts that I actually don't really like are the ones that have come forward and are the ones that are showing their faces and letting themselves be seen, which of course is putting me in a position where I now need to be honest with myself about the ways in which I do hold certain qualities and characteristics that I have a lot of judgment around. And so now I need to learn, I got to meet those parts of me with love and grace and compassion. But the shadow worker doesn't always want to do the shadow work, you know what I'm saying? It's like I don't always want to do it, but I gotta. So we're here. Yeah, and so in suppressing certain parts of myself, other parts of my shadow have decided to take the stage. With each episode, I am less and less. I wanted to say less and less of myself, but the shadow is still a part of me. It is me. Maybe I'm just less and less of my best self. The more fear and insecurity that comes up for me through this process, the more that those shadows come forward. All these different parts of me are really asking to be seen and loved through this process. And it's funny because I was thinking about how I have been showing up to the podcast and how it mirrors the way that I engage with folks I'm trying to build a relationship with, and I'm not sure what they really think of me. So, whether I'm dating or whether I'm trying to make friends, if I feel like I really can't tell whether the other person likes me or not, it's like this slow unraveling, this kind of like demise and collapse that happens. And it's exactly how I feel that I've shown up to this this relationship with me and this camera and this computer. Because what happens is in the beginning, I'm excited and I feel confident. And I'm like, why wouldn't somebody like me? I have so much to offer and I'm feeling good. And there's that feeling of a little buzziness from the potential of a new connection, a new relationship. And so I show up and I'm just like, yeah, I'm good. I'm me. I'm vibing. Everything's flowing. And I feel like that's how I showed up to the first and second episode. It just progressively sort of devolved. But that's how it is. The first time I meet somebody new, I come with that same energy. And then I go away and I start thinking back about different moments. What did that mean? Or did they misunderstand me when I said this? And then I start to get in my head. The next time I see them, I will be more reserved. I will be more withdrawn, a little bit more shy. I won't come with the same energy. And then I'm literally acting weird because I'm not really being myself when I'm in that kind of space of like, I don't really know what you think of me. And I'm just going to be a little bit more quiet, a little bit less engaged. And then obviously that makes some kind of impression on the other person because they can tell I'm acting strange. And then they're responding in their own nonverbal, somatic kind of ways. I'm internalizing and interpreting those responses, and they're leading to more insecurity and more self-doubt. And there are the little whispers in my ear about why people think I'm weird. And of course, they wouldn't like you. And then it just evolves. I go into something so confident, just flowing and free and me. And with each time of me not knowing for sure how they feel, the self-doubt, the little whispers get louder. When I do talk, it's awkward. I'm saying weird things. I'm incredibly avoidant. I'll just be like, oh, they're over there. Let me like run over here so I don't have to walk by them. I become avoidant and I run away. And that's what's happening with the podcast. With every episode, more and more of the fear and insecurity and self-doubt was there with me, and less of my courage, my confidence, my clarity, my conviction is like gone. It's gone because now I'm here in front of you as a scared 5-year-old who is going to be beaten and punished for not doing everything exactly right. And surprise, surprise, emotion is coming up. I don't think anybody who knows me is surprised by that at this point. I think part of the emotion is, well, I feel really exposed saying all this for one thing, and that feels very tender. The other part is what I'm sharing is tied to many, many other things that there are a lot of grief around. And so that grief comes up. And then I also notice that I feel so ashamed to even be saying this. And I feel ashamed about the fact that it makes me emotional. I feel sad that there is a reason in this world to feel embarrassed and ashamed about emotion and insecurity. So yeah, I have progressively shown up to each episode with more and more fear and anxiety. It shows more and more each time. And so I just want to speak a little bit about what has come up for me around some of the specific episodes. Again, I felt like the first couple were great, and then it was just this downfall into my own fear and self-doubt. And that really started with the piece on politics and polarization. I was very hesitant to put that out for many reasons, hesitant to even talk about it. Felt like even the title itself would turn people off and they won't even listen to it, which is probably true. That probably happened. But what was so interesting for me in going back and editing that episode is that I see my own self-righteousness coming out, even as I'm suppressing so much of what I really want to say. A big part of my quote unquote argument in that episode was about the ways in which we pit ourselves against one another. And do we have the capacity to remove the need to be right or wrong and to just simply seek to understand another point of view or perspective? And I felt that even as I am trying to share that kind of message, what I'm doing is putting myself above both quote unquote sides. Like I'm the one who has the answer. It's neither this nor that. And that's the real answer, and I'm the one who has it. So it's almost like by removing myself from the two sides that I was above them and superior to them. And I'm saying this because I can sense that in my own tone. I don't know if anybody else picked up on it, but I see it. There is definitely self-righteousness there. And I even name in that episode that that is a shadow for me. And it is. It is something I have to be mindful of because I do have a tendency to be very strong-headed about my own opinions. And so that was already uncomfortable. I just already felt uncomfortable for so many reasons talking about that topic and saying the things I was saying about it. But then there's also this element, this part of me coming up in it that I don't like, which just made it even more uncomfortable. And then after that was the Aquarius and Jesus and leadership episode, which again, I go into uncomfortable because it has to do with astrology, Aquarius, and it has to do with love, Jesus. And I'm already uncomfortable because of what people might think about that, or what judgments they might make, or ways in which they will misunderstand me talking about either of those things, but especially them together. So I'm already coming in with this anxiety about being open about this part of myself. And then my and then my excitement and passion about the topic sweeps up the anxiety. And now I'm just like I felt like I was unhinged in that episode, almost not even making that much sense, not really saying anything that important, and kind of repeating myself over and over again. The part of me that came out of that was this unhinged, like, version of me that's really preachy. And I even made this joke at the end, like that was my sermon, and I can get preachy. I think that ties into the self-righteous component. And this for me is definitely past life stuff. I know I was some kind of religious leader in the past. I already know. And I think it's ancestral too. Even the meaning of my last name literally means I come from a lineage of priesthood. There's stuff in there that's not even from the present, but it comes out, and I don't like it because it's incongruent with the kind of person that I believe myself to be and the kind of person that I am in so many ways. Balanced, diplomatic, wants to mediate, wants to find common ground, wants things to feel equal and fair, and then you come in with this like self-righteous preachiness, and it feels very counter to that. But it is also a part of me. It's a part of my biased, judgy mind. And then there's the episode that I recorded that was meant to be released this week, and I'm trashing it altogether. And in that episode, I was talking about nuance and complexity and how can we hold and be with multiple truths, multiple realities. I had to ask friends to listen to that episode because I was like, one, I'm not making any sense. The things that I chose to talk about were pretty controversial, and the way that I talked about them felt so cold and detached, and it was very conceptual versus like very human, which is another thing that I judge about the way that my mind works or the way that I process information, is that I can be very big picture and very conceptual and theoretical, and sometimes that doesn't feel so relatable or resonant with actual lived experience. I can be very emotionally detached when I'm in that space. As emotional as I am, I can also become quite cold in an emotional capacity when I am talking about things in a conceptual way. And I was doing that so much in that episode that I felt like it was invalidating to the lived experience of a very marginalized identity that I was using to kind of highlight this point that I was trying to make around nuance and complexity. And because I had so much anxiety as I was recording it, basically what happened was that everything I didn't want to be portrayed in the way I was speaking about this is exactly what came across in the way that I was speaking about this. And so when I asked my friend, can you listen to this? And I received her beautiful, very honest feedback, which was everything I was worried about. And when she confirmed it, I was like, okay, I am not publishing this. There's no way. There's no way. And so this is why it felt really important for me to speak about this now, name this now, because I need to address what's coming up for me so that I can show up for these conversations in a different way. Because I can't just trash every recording that I make. It's not really a viable solution or answer to this problem that I'm facing. I've thought, how can I show up in a way that feels more true to me? Because part of what's happening in recording these episodes is that I'm imagining myself. It's almost like I'm speaking to a mass of people, right? It's like anyone and everyone could hear. But then those fears that come up when I'm in a group of strangers or when I go to some kind of event where I don't know anybody and I feel a little bit intimidated, like those are the parts of me that are also coming forward. So maybe it could be more helpful to imagine that I'm just speaking to one of my close friends, maybe even the friend that listened to this podcast for me. If I just imagine that I'm talking to her, I'm not going to show up in that anxious, scattered, foggy way because I feel safe with her. And part of what's been coming up for me in the process of recording is that I don't feel safe. I really don't feel safe in what I'm doing because the things I want to say are really controversial. They're not really easy to talk about, the things I really want to say, because it's not just like I'm going to anger or alienate or isolate these people over here or those people over there. It's most people. Most people will not like what I have to say. Most people will not want to hear the perspectives that I want to offer. Most people will not want to receive the challenges that I'm presenting. Because what I want to talk about is the ways in which we have internalized so much of what we claim to be against, that we embody so much of what we quote unquote fight against. Being in these spaces of activism and justice and liberation, this is part of where the fear comes from for me, because it is within those groups and that community that I've experienced some of the most extreme, close-minded, fundamentalist, totalitarian attitudes. And it's funny because even just before I came to record this episode, I got a comment on one of my YouTube videos. It was a clip from the Politics and Polarization episode. And this person assumed I was a Democrat for whatever reason based on the clip. And then I realized I was actually wearing a blue sweater when I recorded that, which maybe contributes to that. But he assumed that I was a Democrat. And he said, see, even a Democrat is afraid of speaking against the Democrat totalitarian regime because she knows she will be eaten alive. And that's exactly it. What is more scary is less about how I communicate and even what I'm saying. It's more about the exile, the crucifixion, the ostracization, the cancellation. It's burning at the stake, the excommunication. That's what feels really scary about showing up for this podcast and saying the things I want to say, because most people aren't going to like it. And of course, that forces me to confront all kinds of other shadows and stories and parts of my lived experience that do need to be looked at and reconciled with and released. And there's just so much. And by the way, in case anybody's curious, I don't actually identify as a Democrat. I'm usually more aligned with independent parties, but I think it's interesting that he said that. First of all, I don't even know how he would know that I was afraid. Maybe it's that obvious. And he wasn't wrong. I could very well be chewed up and spit out. And speaking of the YouTube comments, that's also brought up stuff for me. I'm reaching a lot of people that I'm certainly not reaching on my Instagram, and a different type of people that I'm reaching on my LinkedIn. It's like I'm very exposed to all kinds of perspectives and critiques in that space. And I've already started to receive some of that hate, some of that judgment, some of that criticism for who I am, or the way that I get emotional, or the things I say that people think are problematic. And for the most part, with those comments, most of them have been pretty clear that whatever I'm saying is activating that other person's stuff, and they're really speaking from their stuff, and it is a projection. And I know that's going to happen a lot. And oftentimes, criticism is projection. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's valid. And my fear is that the more and more and more of that comes up, can I manage it? Can I manage all of the things that it's going to bring up for me to be attacked in a public way, to be criticized and ridiculed and mocked in a public way? And I know there's some past life stuff with this too, because from the time I was a child, little kid, I knew that I wanted to speak on stages. I envisioned myself with platforms where the things that I wanted to say and the messages that I had really had a far widespread reach. And at the same time, I would look at people who were famous, celebrities, actors, athletes, whatever, and I would think, oh my God, I do not envy that position in the slightest. I could not imagine being so visible and so exposed and having your whole life on display for people to just tear apart. I would never want that. So even as a kid, there is this knowing in me that I really want to actually be heard and seen by a lot of people. And this other knowing in me that I might not survive that. Because probably at some point in the past, I didn't. And so, on some level, it literally feels life threatening that I'm doing this. With the release of the last couple of episodes, I was literally praying that no one would listen to them. So I'm here putting all of this time and effort and energy into recording and editing. And then on the other side of it, I'm praying to God that no one listens. Because if they don't listen, I can't receive the criticism and the judgment and the ridicule and the rejection. And so the question now I have to ask myself is, if I get what I want, if I actually get what I really want, can I even hold it? If my message starts to be seen and heard by more people, can I manage that, or will I die? It's like, can I really hold everything that would come with what I want? And that's why so many of us unconsciously sabotage our opportunities, our possibilities, our potential, because some part of us knows I might not be able to hold that. So the question for me is, what if I actually get everything I want? Who do I have to become now to hold that then? How do I have to show up now to prepare myself and to build my capacity for what will come later? And a friend of mine said the other day, Lena, if you're not making people mad, you're not doing it right. That's how we know that what we're saying actually matters. It is going to upset people. There are going to be people who don't want to hear it, who can't receive the challenge, who don't agree. It's inevitable. And I have to accept that. And I have to let go of the part of me that wants to be palpable and wants to please people and wants to keep the peace. I actually have to let go in some way, the part of me that wants to keep peace, because we can't overlook the most important questions. How do I contribute to the fact that there is no peace? Because you do, I do, we do. That's hard for people to hear. I feel better. Honestly, I feel lighter. I feel relieved just to have shared what is true for me and how terrifying this has been. And like I said, there's so much more. There's so much more coming up, and there's so much more that I'm processing. And of course, I will share it with you when the time for that is right. And in this moment, it just felt important to give a voice to my fear, to let my shadows be seen, to give myself some grace. Because a part of me was like, why are you even going to do this? You know, like, why are you even going to share all this? There's a part of me that is doing it for other people, almost like to explain my behavior. Because I just think I've been like, who even is that person on some of these more recent episodes? So a part of it has been for that, honestly. But a bigger part and the more important part is that I did this for myself. I did this so that I could find a little bit more peace within as part of a way to build my capacity. So that's what's been coming up, and that's part of what I've been moving through and wrestling with. And I really do feel so much better just to have named it. So let's see where things go from here.